Welcome to episode 232 of the Grip Strip Podcast, the NASCAR, NFL, and Knoxville edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, as always, the iRacing Indy 500 winner, a computer genius, a gentleman and a scholar. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Phil. Of course, we're on this Olympic break right now, but next week comes back to an end, and we're back to the regular deal here with Cup racing back at Richmond next week. So at least NASCAR's getting ready to get back on. So glad to see that. But of course, a lot of other stuff going on, including Olympics, but also NFL training camp getting underway. So got to get back on the NFL grind as well for fantasy. So got to start up on that, but yeah, ready to get into it.
Yeah, we're going to discuss NASCAR Cup Series since they're coming back from their Olympic break this coming weekend at Richmond on Sunday evening. We're going to discuss the season so far and good, bad, and the ugly, the people that we think are in play for the championship, the people who have disappointed, et cetera, et cetera. Roundup will be a little bit tighter than usual forget about some. We also talk about silly season news, certain Monterriers coming back, which is pretty cool. NFL, we'll talk about the Jaguars and the 49ers, of course. We'll also talk about some of the new things that are going on, the new kickoff rule that took place for the first time at the Hall of Fame game. Speaking of Hall of Fame, Patrick Willis was officially inducted into the Hall of Fame, so my favorite defensive player of all time. Got to join Bryant Young and many others in the hall. You had Julius Peppers get in, and Devin Hester, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of people. Steve McMichael, the late Steve McMichael, Mongo, inducted, Grandishar, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a good deal this past weekend, and we'll get into it, of course, with the NFL since we're getting closer, a couple weeks away from our draft in the Fall Brawl League, and then I've got other drafts going on now. One of the live draft for my Dynasty League with that I'm sharing with Vic there, that team, and then there's a couple other leagues, so building up. So keeping myself busy. It's interesting now that I actually have a job, legitimate job, how much time I'll be able to spend on it, but hopefully I spend enough so that I can actually win. It's been way too long, at least in my league. But in the roundup, we will talk about IMSA at Road America, MotoGP, and Moto2 at Silverstone. They're moving the British Grand Prix for MotoGP and to the last weekend in May, so you can add that to the greatest day in motorsports for that next year, adding the 3 big car races, but now you have a MotoGP race at Silverstone as well, and Moto2 and the like, so that'll be very cool. And we'll talk about the crazy end of Rally Finland. World Superbikes will be coming back this week in Portugal at Algarve, and I think it's Portugal. And then, of course, the Knoxville Nationals is this week. Rico Abreu won the Capitani Classic last night, being Sunday night, so putting himself in position yet again, same like he did at Eldora, trying to win the King's Royal, but unfortunately on Saturday it didn't work out too well for him to try and win that race. David Gravel ended up winning it, so can David Gravel go out there and get the Knoxville Nationals victory, or will Kyle Larson go out there and do what he usually does when he gets in a sprint car and win again at Knoxville? He's won that race a couple times now after a while not winning it, so he's going to be a factor, having to fly back and forth from Richmond to go and do that. So we'll get in all that, and then make our preview and picks for the Cup and Trucks at Richmond. Last regular season event for the Truck Series will tell you who's in the mix, who's already in, who has a point chance with points, and who needs to win. And then Cup Series return as well. So the stretch run into the chase or whatever. So we'll get into that. Josh will let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing in the sim segment, and we'll call it a day. Yeah, I mean, this year, Cup Series, it was, typical kind of start. You had Hendrick domination in terms of the winning races. You had Gibbs up there. I mean, Hamlin won the Clash. Then Byron comes through and wins the 500 on the Monday. Yeah, it is a Monday finish. You had Larson win at Las Vegas. Then you had Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, and the tire nightmare that was Bristol. Byron again at Coda. Hamlin beating MTJ at Richmond. Byron in a 1-2-3 for Hendrick Motorsports conveniently when they had the 40th anniversary cars all running. Or was it a 1-2-3-4? I feel like it definitely was a top 1-2-3 finish. Yeah.
Martinsville and then 1-2-3.
Yeah, and then Alex Bowman actually finished 8th. So that was, they ran, what is it? It's supposed to be 400 laps. They ran 15 extra laps there. So that seems to be a pattern that's taken place this year. Clyde Reddick won at Talladega. That was one of the cooler victory lanes of the season with certain GOAT of a sport there. Hamlin, Larson, Brad winning again at Darlington was a big one. So that was great to see him win for the first time as a car owner, first time in a couple of years since he won in 2021. So it's been a long time. And Logano dominated the All-Star race. Christopher Bell won in a rain-shortened Coca-Cola 600. Gumby becoming the second kind of wild card winner of the season after Blaney runs out of gas. But Blaney came back and was able to win at Iowa and also at Pocono. So Bowman gets a win for the first time in a while at Chicago after SVG got destroyed and they had rain again. Logano after 94 restarts won at Nashville. So I mean, and then Larson won again at Indy, but I mean, it's similar to most of this recent years here, Josh, where you look at the 5 and the 11 as two of the standouts. 9 car has been good this year after a weird year for Elliott last year. All the Hendrick cars have won. 3 of the Gibbs cars, or 2 of the Gibbs cars have won. Truex has been close. Of course, he's going to retire at the end of the season from full-time competition. You have Tyler Reddick, who's won, so theoretically that's 3 Gibbs cars. But, you have the main Chevy team has got all their representatives. You have the main Toyota team, at least with 50% of their representation right now. But MTJ's up there in points. Bubba's battling for a playoff spot points-wise. And then Keebler Gibbs also has points. So all of them are kind of in the mix. And then the number 1 Ford team in Penske, all their cars are in the playoff. So in a sense, it's status quo, but it isn't that straightforward, especially on the Ford side. Blaney was the one consistent factor, I think, throughout the year before he finally won. But a lot of the other Fords were off. I mean, Brad's been good on and off. Buescher's kind of taken kind of a slight step back, but we're getting into a mix of races, which worked out for him last year. The SHR going away has definitely been an issue. I mean, it wasn't like they were bringing the best vehicles out to begin with, but that all kind of going away has been an issue. Though for Josh Berry, it hasn't really affected him as much. Him and Childers seem to be doing good work. But all the SHR cars are going to have to win to get in. And there's a bunch of people that are right now it's a concern with this group of races coming up to try and back their way in, because you have guys like Daniel Suarez and Gumby Cindric who made it in with a win right now. But if instead of Larson or freaking Larson, Hamlin or Bell winning a race, if some other different driver can win, it could get kind of sketchy here as we get towards the end of this regular season, Josh. But I went over a lot of things, a lot of these cars, but I mean, I think this championship starts right now, at least the discussion starts and ends with the bosom buddies and Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think I lean more towards Larson because we've seen him, throughout the year run up front. He's got the most poles to start out the year so far, and he's led more laps than anybody right now. So I think definitely Kyle Larson has been up there. They've had some stretches where they weren't as consistent, but they followed up those stretches with wins. So some of it they haven't been nearly where they've needed to be, but they've always ran up front and led laps. So yeah, I think Larson's in the position to be the favorite for the championship right now. But Denny Hamlin, on the other hand, I mean, he's got 3 wins, and he's been way more inconsistent than Larson. Got an average finish of 15.2 compared to Larson's 13.0. Has 8 top 5s, 9 top 10s in 22 races, which is actually, to me, even with 3 wins, that screams inconsistency right there. Or Larson, in 21 races, because he missed the Coke 600 due to weather, he's 9 top 5s and 10 or 11 top 10s, so slightly better, but he's also led 10 less laps actually, so which I guess, considering he's ran 1 less race than Denny, Denny's 4th in points there. So Denny's led 772 laps to Larson's 762. So Larson's actually been up front for more because he's led or ran 1 less race. So imagine if he had that Coke 600, which that car looked like it was running well. So imagine that could have had more laps led than anybody in the whole field so far if he had ran all the races. But I think what this shows is Denny has run up front a lot, but is had issues finishing races, whether they faded at the end due to strategy going against them, or being taken out of races, certain things like that. Like we saw at Nashville, they were in position to win that race, and then we had the 100 million restarts, and then eventually they ended up pulling into pit road and giving up that race and finishing 12th after starting on pole. Definitely could have been a better result for them, possibly a win there. They were in Indianapolis. Obviously they lost out on the chance to win, but potential top 10 run there going up in smoke when Kyle Busch spun out on there and went into overtime. So, and they didn't have enough gas. So a lot of this stuff going to fuel situation there, not playing the right way that they wanted it to. So yeah, a lot of things for Denny Hamlin, where they could have won the race, or possibly won the race. Another one where Texas, they were right there leading laps at the end. They had a chance to battle Chase Elliott there for the win late in the going, and then he spun out in turn 4. So there's a lot of wins that he's had thrown away, in addition to some of the wins that he's had this year, and he calls himself one of the unluckiest drivers in NASCAR history because of how many wins he's missed out on, and possibly could have had 50 more wins according to him if things actually went his way. And of course, he's already got a ton of career wins anyways, so guess it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I mean, for the championship, I think I lean towards Kyle Larson when you kind of look at the results and everything, and kind of tells you where those two guys stand. But I think Denny's other driver, Tyler Reddick, is quietly asserting himself into this talk as well, because statistically he's actually the best driver based on top fives and top tens. Just hasn't had, he's probably had worse luck at winning races than Denny has, with only one victory at Talladega. So for how well he's ran, Tyler Reddick, I think, is quietly a championship contender.
Yeah, Tyler Reddick definitely is somebody that we have to consider. He's never contended for a Cup Series championship, but he's a two-time Xfinity champion with two different teams. He has been underground very consistent, more consistent than his car owner, like you mentioned there, in Dennis Hamlin. They've been up there a lot. He only has one win, but I think he could have more. Larson has caught him out there. Larson's been able to get a lot of these guys this year. So it's interesting to look at those drivers and what they're going to do or what they can do. Personally, I'll go with the Blaney topic because he's basically been the best Ford all year. Ford, of course, bringing the new Dark Horse out, and it wasn't ideal to start the year. They were definitely on the back foot. They weren't winning races. Darlington opened the door and opened the floodgates for them. Logano has not had he didn't have great luck early in the year. Definitely had a lot of pace. Probably should have won the Daytona 500. He had the best car that whole week there, and then was basically holding his steering wheel at the end. But he lost a lot of points early in the year, so he had to make up for it. Was a beneficiary of a Scott Dixon level fuel save at Nashville, plus all those cautions to get that victory. I look at those two guys specifically because of, their history. Logano being a two-time champion, Blaney being the defending series champion, and the change that he made, the switch that he made up to that elite tier last fall in the chase, that now he's one of the guys you have to deal with every week. He's not somebody that's just going to fall away. He's not somebody that's just going to fall out in the Elite Eight, though getting to the Elite Eight means a lot. He showed up last year and was a closer. Won at Martinsville, finished second at Phoenix to get the job done. And Penske definitely has great setups for Phoenix. Hendrick and Gibbs, of course, are there too, but Penske always seems to bring something for Phoenix. And for as long as we're going to have to go to that shithole racetrack for a championship, they're going to be a factor. You'd assume that to either Gibbs or Hendrick or Toyotas, and then one Hendrick car or two Hendrick cars and a Gibbs car will be there, but you can't count out those two guys just based on their recent history. We look at those are some of the championship contenders. Lurking. I mentioned Logano. He's lurking. He always is a factor in that sense. People, whether you like him or hate him, he's somebody that you can't count out. 10th in playoff standings right now, giving up a lot of points to everybody else, but nearly over 200 points behind, 220 points behind Kyle Larson. And Kyle Larson didn't even drive every race this year. So that tells you, it's got to be something when the guys missed a race, got a waiver, ran the Indianapolis 500, and probably was disappointed because they had issues late. But he missed a race, and he's kicking your asses. That's a fundamental issue because he doesn't need any motivation anyways. The bastard gets in any car and fucking wins, but when you're spotting him a race or he's spotting you a race and he's still got you. I mean, it's not 2021. It kind of could go that way if he gets on a heater, but 2021 was definitely, a bunch of different things worked out that way. But he's figuring this car out, and him and Daniels are one of the best combinations in this sport. And for as long as Kyle Larson wants to keep on driving sprint cars and whatever, for as long as he decides he wants to drive a cup car, I think it's going to be a problem for everybody. Somebody has to convince him, remind him that he wants to be the second coming of Steve Kinser and not the second coming of Jeff Gordon or Jimmy Johnson. That would probably help out a bit. But Fat Felon bought him after he effed up, and he ain't getting rid of him because that's the best marketing for HendrickCars.com there's ever been. So, I mean, that's you talking about Larson. I mean, I look at Christopher Bell. He has 3 wins, but he's still relatively unknown or kind of, even though he's made Final Four appearances, he's won at Phoenix, there's people still seem to underestimate the guy, I think, in certain ways. Because dude is outside. I mean, everyone talks about Hamlin because he's been there for almost 2 decades in Cup and basically 2 decades in general. You got Truex, who's on his way retiring, and then you got Keebler, so nepotism, but the guy has some semblance of talent. Bell's been driving a 20 car and arguably has been the best driver in that car. I know Kenseth had his moments. Eric Jones had his moments. Kenseth had the one great year in 13. But, you think about the 20 car, it's Tony Stewart. And Tony Stewart would go and kind of have these kind of years where he'd go and win a few races, kind of lay low, get his top 5s, top 10s, and then he'd show up late in the season. To me, there's a lot of similarities to Tony's days, in his best days at the 20 car with him and Zippy. Adam Stevens, of course, wants to prove it wasn't just the fact that he was with Kyle Busch. He's been pushing to try to get this championship to put himself on that next level echelon of great crew chiefs. And if he could go and get that job done with Christopher Bell, it would be big for him. You can't count him out once you get to the playoffs. He's another one. After that, we look at the standings, and I guess Brad could be, if he could be a little bit more consistent. But Matt McCall kind of is a chancy, goes and takes a lot of risks, and they seem to not work out too well. That's been his MO for his entire time as a crew chief, really. And when it comes to Brad, he's someone that has been a risk taker when he was with Paul Wolf, but it doesn't jive. It hasn't connected yet. But that car has been relatively consistent, and he's a guy that he knows how to acquire points. He knows how to win a championship. Should be a multi-time champion by now, but only has the one. But he can say he beat Jimmy Johnson heads up for that one and then got shit-faced on national television. I look at the people that are kind of in play. I don't know. Bubba, he's 14th in points. Ross Chastain, 13th in points overall. Those are the guys that are right on that bubble. You have Buescher kind of in that mix too. He's only 17 points up on Bubba right now. So those guys are going to be racing for their lives the rest of this regular season, which might actually lead to a possibility of getting on that heater that they need to go a couple of rounds. I think Bubba's finishes aren't indicative of how good he has run in a lot of these races. His road course prowess, he actually has road course ability. They gave him the kind of comfortability that he needs. So that's a big deal. You have Chris Buescher, who is a Cup winner and now has won multiple races. He's somebody that can win on any type of circuit. If he can get in, I would definitely think that he's somebody that's going to be a tough out. He always has been. That's just kind of how Chris Buescher has always been. Chastain, he won at Phoenix last year. He finished second in the championship a couple of years ago. Trackhouse has underperformed big time this year. And you think about what Trackhouse is going to expand because they're going to get a charter and they're going to expand to have SVG next year. So it kind of this is where that fork in the road is, Josh. I don't know what you think with those three guys, but this is the proverbial fork in the road. You have one of the biggest sponsors in the sport in Anheuser-Busch and Busch Light. You have the marketing push and all that. They've been a good team. They've been one of the better teams since this car's come along, but they've fallen behind. Suarez, outside of backdooring that win at Atlanta, basically has done jack shit. Him and Cindric, I mean, they're just really got lucky, or else both of them would be begging and praying and hoping to make the playoff. And they're hoping new guys don't start winning, for sure. But I think for Chastain, this is a test for him and Phil Surgeon and that whole group of trying to go and try and win a race, which they haven't really had the pace this year to do so. And I'm not really certain of what track would make the most sense for them to go and get that win. Maybe Darlington, because he's pretty good there. But that's the last race before the playoff start, right? Or that's a cutoff. Yeah. So I mean, that's making a big sweat, and it's a Southern 500. Buescher, I think, because of Richmond, he won there last year. Michigan, he won there last year. Daytona, he won. He has opportunities. Bubba, there's pressure on him. I think they're really focusing on Michigan because that's one of his best racetracks. They always pick him at the plate tracks, but he never really seems to be in the right place at the right time lately. He was a little more lucky when he was driving the 43 car, it seemed. But what do you think for those three guys? Those are the guys that are on that bump for the playoff. And I mean, and then I guess as a follow-up to that, do you think that there's anybody outside of the playoff, a la Kyle Busch, that could maybe make it in, get a lucky and whether it's a lucky win or get something to go and help them get over the edge and get into the playoff?
Yeah, man, I'll start with those three, with Bubba Wallace, which you mentioned, Michigan is probably the best opportunity for him. But remember, he was also running up front at Richmond and was in there contending. And then obviously finished outside the top 10 in that one, but back in the spring, but they were running good at that track for a good part of that race. So they've, been good there too. Michigan, obviously last year they ran up front there. They ran up front 2022 when he won the pole there. And Daytona is a good track for him as well. So, he's a guy that could possibly go out and win one of those races, or even multiple ones possibly. But he's definitely on trending to make it into the playoff now, because Ross Chastain has given up a lot of points here in the last couple of races and everything. And I don't know about Darlington for Bubba Wallace. I'm not sure that's really good track for him, but there's always the opportunity there too. But for Ross Chastain, they've given up a lot of points over last couple of races. Like I said, going all the way back. I mean, we can go to Iowa. They were sitting, or Sonoma, they finished 5th, sitting 10th in the standings. They had 11th at Iowa, Loudon 10th, so pretty solid. But then kind of this free fall starting at Nashville, where they were leading the race, and then Denny Hamlin passes him with a handful of laps to go. Then the caution comes out, and then in overtime, Kyle Larson oversteps the first corner and then gets into him and takes him out there. So yeah, that, and then didn't run well at all at Chicago, and then crashed at Pocono. So and then they didn't run. They led laps at Indianapolis, but Bubba outran them at Indianapolis there. So for all those races, there's definitely opportunity, especially at Nashville. So Chastain, they've been very inconsistent at Trackhouse this year. They've been kind of running better since the start of the spring, but they just haven't had the finishes to really show for it. But for Chastain, he's definitely on the on the wrong side of the, I guess, momentum, and they've got to use this time at the Olympic break here to get refocused. Obviously he went and ran Michelin Pilot Challenge for IMSA over the weekend, so a little bit of racing experience there. But now they've got a couple of tracks here where he's got varied history. Of course, not sure about Richmond or Michigan for Chastain, but Daytona, remember, he was in the hunt on the coming to the white flag, trying to make a move on William Byron, and crashed out of the Daytona 500 on coming to the final lap there. And Darlington, remember last year battling for the win with Kyle Larson at Darlington. That's when he got the famous talking to, supposedly, from Rick Hendrick. So there's opportunity there. I mean, it's more of a track position race. So I think Chastain's really his best opportunity might be Daytona, just based on how he ran at the Daytona 500, and I guess positioning himself to be up front there for that race. So that's definitely his opportunity there. And then Buescher, I mean, he's got the most to lose, obviously, in the best position out of all those three drivers, which three of the tracks that he won out last year, all three in a row, coming up here with Richmond, Michigan, and Daytona. So been quite a while since Buescher has won. Of course, had opportunities at Kansas and Darlington, and then wrecked at Darlington. So there's definitely battling for the win there. So there's definitely opportunity there for all four of those races for Chris Buescher to possibly win a race. So he's definitely, like I said, in the best position there. And then you mentioned Kyle Busch. I mean, he's total wild card, long shot, I think, right now. Really hard to picture him being up front at any of these tracks except for Daytona. They, obviously at Michigan last year, they crashed out of that race, got loose in turn 1 and 2 and wrecked out. Richmond, definitely going to, it's a handling track, a short track, and they just have been good enough to really consider at that track. And Darlington, I guess, I mean, they didn't run well there either. So they finished 20th at Richmond this year, and they finished 27th at Darlington, and Daytona led 12 laps and finished 12th. So I don't think any of these races are really in Kyle Busch's favor. So he's the wild card, definitely, in that situation. But could it happen? I mean, anything's possible, but it's just looking more and more likely that he's going to miss out on the playoffs this year, the first time in a long time that he's missed the playoffs, and possibly could go this year without a winner. They've made note of that recently on the broadcast. So we'll see for Kyle Busch, but of course, obviously won the 2019 championship, but then he made note of his winless streak in 2020 and has only won a handful of races over the last couple of years, and really has kind of fallen off since 2018 when you look at it. So a lot of drivers age 39, that's kind of the prime, but obviously Kyle Busch has been racing in NASCAR full time since he was 18, so maybe that prime is past that now for him. So we'll see. I mean, he's into his 40s and he's trying to race until his son is old enough to race in the Truck Series. But I think Kyle Busch maybe possibly exiting his prime if he hasn't already.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that leads into the disappointments. Granted, RCR sucks on multiple levels, but the product they're putting out there on the racetrack on a weekly basis is terrible. Kyle Busch last year started out hot, had won, I think, I don't know how many, 3 races, 4, some crap early. And then ever since that win at Gateway last June, they have disappeared. And we talk about, like Josh, you mentioned Kyle Busch being, that great elite, one of the greatest ever, which he is, but I think he had one view of what he thought this opportunity would be at RCR. I think he imagined that it would be more like what Kevin Harvick seemed to have at times in his years there. They did have that initial momentum from Reddick there. I don't think it's a crew chief issue. I think I'm forgetting the guy's name, crew chief for the 8 car, but let me look it up. Team chart is scrolling that right now. Yeah, Randall Burnett. Yeah.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's not a crew chief issue. The cars are not good. And fundamentally, when you're not, you don't bring a good race car, you're going to end up being in the back. The highlight of here's the reality about Kyle Busch. A couple of years ago, if Chase Briscoe doesn't decide to go and airmail it into 3 and 4 at the Bristol Dirt, he wouldn't have won that year at all either. That was just luck that he backdoored that. He's been flirting with not winning a race for a while. A lot of these guys have that happen. Johnson, at the end of his career, couldn't win a race for I don't know how many years. Jeffy had a couple of years where he didn't win. Tony basically was non-competitive after his injuries. Dale Earnhardt had a period of time when he wasn't competitive. There's very few drivers that end their careers in that top tier. There usually is a fall off. And if Kyle Busch is having that fall off, then it's not great for the sport because, to be fair, he still gets people fired up one way or the other. Probably one of the highlights of the year is him getting a right hook from Richard. Richard, that was probably the highlight of Ricky Stenhouse's season. I think that him and his wife, I don't know if they got married or they had a kid or whatever. That was his highlight, but his second highlight was punching Kyle Busch in the face. And that's probably the most meaningful thing that Stenhouse has done in a cup car or outside of a cup car since he won races back in 2017 or won the Daytona 500. Kyle Busch's highlight of the year is getting his ass kicked by Richard and Richard's dad. That's the highlight of his year, and that tells you how bad it is. You look at after that, disappointments. Not really. I think the Front Row Motorsports team to a point has been a little bit of a disappointment relative to how they've run a lot of the season. To be that far down in points is kind of a disappointment because you got Gillen moving up, but he's been kind of buried. And then McDowell's been fast all year, but then he announced he's going to Spire. And I guess he was some sort of clairvoyant, I guess, because he talks to Jesus or whatever. I guess he knew that Rodney Childers was going there. But you think about Front Row, and they've made such a huge gain from where they used to be to where they are now. They're a tier 1 Ford team. They essentially swap places with Stewart-Haas. And but they're not beating. What's funny is they're not even beating all the Stewart-Haas cars. Briscoe's ahead of them, and Barry is right there with those guys, and Gagson is there, and you consider Gagson also was penalized. I don't know how many points early in the season. So you look at that, and in the end, those 2 Front Row cars have underperformed. Honestly, I think another thing that's kind of interesting is the Legacy team. They've been a disappointment. You had John Hunter, like we talked about, for the Indy show a couple of weeks back, where you had both good and bad John Hunter. You had the good where he was leading the race and actually looked like the guy that's considered one of the more talented young guys, and then he went and caused a massive wreck late in the race. Eric Jones has had all kinds of issues all year, and you think 2 years ago he was winning the Southern 500, and what happened to that? Like in the matter of a year and a half or a couple of years, they went from being a winning team to basically being petty enterprises again. I mean, it's kind of crazy how that's all worked out. It's not a case of resources, I don't think, when it comes to Maury Gallagher, who's a rich bastard, and you have Jimmy Johnson. People want to say Jimmy's not fully involved because he's coming from Europe or whatever. But at the end of the day, I don't think Jimmy Johnson does anything without the intention of being good. You know, it's just Jimmy Johnson. He doesn't want to go out there and be an also-ran. I mean, he knows that he made a mistake going to IndyCar in his 40s when he probably should have done it after he'd won 5 consecutive championships. Maybe then that would have been something. You know, it would be the opposite of what Dario did when he drove for Ganassi and they sucked, and then he got hurt because Larry Gunzelman used him and the right side of that car as a brake, and then he got into the Ganassi Indy car and then went off and won 3 championships and 2 Indianapolis 500s and probably should have won more. But I think that one is pretty crazy to me. I mean, I get that Toyota doesn't, I guess the pipeline of data doesn't go the whole way, but I would have thought that especially Eric Jones would have been running better. But who knows what the deal is. I get Johnson not being competitive. We can think back to his last few years as a regular. He wasn't competitive as he had been, of course. And he set the bar so high that the fall has been pretty sad. I mean, you think about him and Chad. Now Chad, of course, runs the show at Hendrick Motorsports in the shop, and even at the end of his career, I mean, they stopped working together. It wasn't like Chad was winning. Of course, he was with that dipshit Will Byron, but yeah, I mean, I think that's really, those are the disappointments. I mean, RCR, it's karma probably. They're not a great team anyway. I mean, Harvick basically, once he left, they bottomed out. But they keep running Austin Dillon, and that's probably another problem too, because he sucks. And he sucked for a while. I get that, you know, he's friends with, you know, Paul Swan is his best friend, and I forget which wedding it was that Paul Swan was at. And then, so that means Austin Dillon was at it too. It was a big famous wedding, big time racing wedding, I think, recently. I'm forgetting about that, but, or sports wedding or something like that. But, speaking of weddings, just before we move forward, yeah, Tyler, congrats to Tyler and Alexa Reddick. Got married during this, break. Also to Suarez and, Julia, or Daniel and Julia Suarez, getting married in Brazil. The rehearsal dinner taking place in, I assume, the executive dining room of Nelson Piquet's estate, where his 3rd championship winning F1 car is hanging off the wall. I don't really care for the MF for a lot of reasons. You know, his ego, his thoughts on Senna, thoughts on Formula One in general, the fact that he's about to be related to fish lips, his politics too. There's a lot of things, but the guy is a 3-time Formula One world champion, and in his time was one of the best. So that is pretty epic. That tells you how good he was. He can go and hang a car off the damn wall, and it's one of his own. Then he has that, right? He has it in his living room or something. So I think that's a flex when you're able to take one of your winning race cars and just put it as a talking piece in the room. But Is there anybody else that kind of stands out to you, Josh, or did you want to go in on some of the ones that I mentioned in terms of disappointments? I mean, some of the other ones I would say are kind of like expected and is why those changes are coming. If I was going to bring up like the likes of Harrison Burton, who's been an unmitigated disaster as a Cup driver.
Yeah, Harrison Burton has not improved at all in his time here running in the Cup Series. I think one guy that maybe is disappointing is Zane Smith. Obviously coming from the Truck Series all the way up to Cup in one season, going racing with Spire and racing with that team. Didn't really bring anything to table running in with Bob Jenkins with that team, but just with front row. But now going up to Cup with Zane Smith here running the Spire, the third Spire car, which I guess to be expected, right? Has ran pretty poorly, but at least we kind of see Carson Hocevar making something out of nothing a lot of times, and he's ranked in 24th versus 33rd for Zane Smith. So obviously we thought that Zane Smith was the more polished talent between these two, and obviously being a farm driver for Trackhouse, but he hasn't really performed up to maybe what people thought he would do in the Cup Series, and definitely has people questioning. And then now obviously with possibly only 3 charters here in the Cup Series, potentially for I guess new teams, there's possibility here that Zane Smith, maybe on the outside looking in, because they'll probably keep Ross Chastain because he's got the Busch sponsorship money and all that stuff. SVG is likely to come into the Cup Series, and I think Daniel Suarez probably has a ride for a long time with that team as well. So it looked like maybe Zane Smith might be on the outside looking in there. So that's definitely disappointing effort there. I guess maybe other people that were disappointing to an extent, maybe Josh Berry could be considered disappointing, because considering where Kevin Harvick was at last year, even though he didn't win a race, definitely was in contention a lot. But Josh Berry here, he's had a couple of good runs, over the season, but they just there's been a lot of other races where they were, completely lost. So, Josh Berry, in a way, could be considered a disappointment, but he's run well enough to take over the 21 car from Harrison Burton. So I guess there's consolation there in him and his ability to run. I guess Michael McDowell could also be considered a disappointment, because people thought that he would be the anchor for front row to get into the playoffs, and they just have not had the luck to get in there. And they were probably relying on at least the road courses being in play for him, and they just outside of Sonoma, they just haven't had the ability to be in position to win a race, and Chicago, I guess, as well. So they ran plenty good, but throughout the year, but just not good enough to be a serious playoff contender, which last year they won their way into the playoffs. So I think he's I guess another driver that could be looked at as a disappointment there. But I think we kind of covered them all with Kyle Busch and John Hunter and Legacy, obviously, which I think it's definitely disappointing to see where Legacy is running overall, considering Toyota's funding them now. But with Toyota, they're not partnered up with Gibbs. They're partnered with Toyota, getting support from them, but they're not partnered up with Gibbs. So they're kind of going at it alone, kind of with doing the opposite of 2311. So I guess you're kind of seeing the difference there. But those, I guess, I think all those drivers definitely could be considered disappointment, considering what they had going for them in 2022.
Yeah, the whole TRD getting everything from California, even with the spec aspect that is this car, there's a lot of growing pains that come with it. Maybe there will be growth next year, but right now they're definitely on the struggle bus. And it's a shame, really, because Eric Jones, for a long time, has probably been one of the better talents in this sport, but it's kind of been kicked to the curb. You know, he's kicked to the curb by Gibbs for Chris Bell, and now, you know, he's been in this car for a while, and it's starting to look like it's not great. But yeah, I mean it's disappointing for him. The Zane Smith one makes sense too, because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, right now we are going to talk about it here in a moment, but one of the cars at Spire now is open. The 71 has been taken, and the 77 is going to be Hocevar. I think they're going to build around him. So unless Zane Smith gets a reprieve and gets into the 7 car, and not only that, but gets to work with Rodney Childers, which would be an amazing upgrade, akin to what Casey Mears was able to do in 2006 when he was going to end up in a new car, but then ended up in the 42 car and with Donnie Wingo, and use that year to get into the Hendrick 25 because he's close friends with Jeffy and Jimmy. That kind of has the same feels. There's probably other ones that I'm forgetting off the top of my head, but Zane Smith, I mean, he might go, the front row option is there because they have that third charter. You know, so but I mean, we talk about it. There's Riley Herbst and his money. Seems like either he's going to go to 2311. I would also think that front row would be in play. Because what is it called? They already announced Gagson to be in one of the cars. They didn't tell which one. And then Todd Gilliland is going to return, but they haven't announced the third driver. So it doesn't mean that they have to bring money either, theoretically. But I'm assuming that Gagson's probably going to be in the 34 car. But, you know, you never know. But we'll see what happens with the rest of this season. We'll definitely cover it here as we go along. News items in recent days, or speaking of Spire, you know, LaJoie gets, or they let him go, or he decides he's not going to re-sign with them after he signed an extension around this time last year. So that's pretty interesting how that all worked out. Leaving that 7 car with Rodney Childers as the crew chief open, which I would think that if I'm any driver on the free agent market, I'm trying to get there. Not because Spire's like some amazing team, but you know, they are willing, there's resources there, and you have one of the best crew chiefs, period. And you figure a lot of the guys that are on that Ford team are going to probably try to move over there because, you know, their options are limited. I don't think they're going to keep everything. I think the Haas team, they're going to bring a lot of Cole Custer's Xfinity team up because he's so comfortable with that crew, and then probably pick and choose some guys and girls to stick around to run that one charter car. And but because they're going to be a Roush Fenway, they're going to essentially be a third or fourth Roush Fenway car if you consider Haley also being a Roush Fenway car too. So that's one. There's the Andretti Global wanting to be in the Cup Series, which also plays into the Spire thing because of Gainbridge. So there's a lot going on there with Spire, and it probably makes that 7 car definitely in play when, even though LaJoie's been terrible, he's been outperformed by Hocevar. Zane Smith, even with how bad things have been, he's got a better finish, the best career finish than LaJoie has. You know, so I mean, there's things to look at there. I think that car, I mean, you have the third car at front row. You're going to have 2 more charters, which are more than likely the 2311, and then Trackhouse, because now they have more investors. They're going to do that for SVG. And so, I mean, and there's a lot of conjecture in regards to the charters in terms of the RTA and versus with NASCAR. Again, we're trying to make a deal with NASCAR, and the France's, they still haven't finalized all that. There's that Netflix show that probably isn't going to happen now because of the charter discussions. I wonder what's going to come of that. I mean, Hamlin's been outspoken, of course, because why wouldn't he be? That's just who he is. But they're not going to give guarantees. It doesn't look like for these charters, which, I mean, when you consider the going rate of some of these charters, I'm not sure what guarantee you really need. There's still some semblance of a need or a want there. There isn't enough supply for the demand, so you don't have to have a guaranteed situation to get any value. Yes, granted, the amount of money you have to put in to make it work is unsustainable and is not a very, cost effective deal. And I know, like, with MJ's people and some of these other outside groups, you got Armando with Trackhouse, with the way that Justin Marks does business. Like, you have these new people coming in. Matt Collig, shout out to Lee Filter, gutter protection, since one of their people came over and sold us some gutter deals there. So I brought up Matt Collig to the guy, and he's like, "You know him?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been a NASCAR fan most of my life, so I know that he owns your company, and he's a multi-millionaire." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know. If you can go and afford a charter in NASCAR, 2 charters, I think you're pretty good."
I like that.
Yeah, that was a good one there. Just random way to get a Matt Collig reference in there, but like, he's a newer person, made his wealth the way he did with all them businesses he's got going on. And then you're looking at the health of this series. They were worried about new people coming in. They got a few new people, and really, what is it? It's Justin Marks, Matt Collig, and Michael Jordan. But where else are we getting anybody? At the end of the day, we're still in the same problem that has existed. Tony's leaving. So essentially, one of the younger owners in this sport is bailing out. And you still have all these old fucks, with Reverend Gibbs, Fat Felon, Childress. The Wood brothers, you have John Wood kind of taking over. The kind of being the face over his father, or with his father and uncle, been running the show forever, for recent years, for many years. One as the team guys over there in the 90s, but they're trying to bring in a youth movement at the Woods. You have Penske, of course. Yeah, it's another one. Most of the owners are old, and you need to have succession plans. Yeah, Jeffy, in theory, is going to basically be the owner of Hendrick Motorsports. Fine. But, and they have solid sponsorship. But, Jimmy is an owner. But we have to question how invested is he when they're running as bad as they are. They need to have more of these guys in this. They need to have, like, Denny Hamlin. Like, it's getting to a point where we're basically talking about the late 2000s, the late aughts driver lineup, and all of them are owning race cars, for the exception now of Tony Stewart. Kevin Harvick might be. I don't know if Kevin Harvick might come back into play. Kyle Busch, of course, was a part of it. Who knows? Maybe Kyle Busch goes over to the 7 car. That might be something. But since he sold his truck team to Spire, so there's a problem that NASCAR has and has had for a while, and they continue to have it, and they're not solving it, and this car isn't making it any better. They're making money, shit tons of money. They can give it back to the teams. And if they were to give it back to some of these teams, they might actually put it in and actually try to go and race better. and then in turn, you might actually have a better product. But that makes too much sense. That would actually involve logic. Juan Pablo Monterrier. They showed that video and I lost it because I saw the gray hair and he's a short guy and I'm like, that Monterrier, he's pretty good. I literally started posting it as many different places as I could and it ended up being the case. So Juan Pablo Montoya, for the first time in a decade, will be driving a Cup car at Watkins Glen, one of his best tracks. Won one of his 2 Cup Series races there, and the last race with the 50 car with the 2311, at least for now. We'll see what happens, what number or whatever they're going to be doing there. But yeah, Juan Pablo Montoya coming back is really cool. Yeah, there was a lot of talk about the fact that most of these current day or recent fans only talk about the jet dryer deal, and I'm like, yeah, well, most of those people are morons. When you consider how good Juan Pablo Montoya is or has been in his career, that you're focusing on something that had nothing to do with him personally. It was Chad Johnston's negligence, and negligence on the part of NASCAR officials for allowing that car to go back out when it was damaged as much as it was. So that had nothing to do with Juan, but more people remember him for that, unfortunately, at least on NASCAR side. I mean, if you actually have any semblance of intelligence and you've looked at his career, the guy has won in virtually any car he's gotten into in his career. He was one of the only people that fought against Michael Schumacher. He wasn't intimidated by him. He never was able to really put it together for a full season to compete for a championship outside of 2003 in F1. And IndyCar, kart, he won as a rookie, beating Dario on count back based on wins. In 2000, he goes out and wins the Indianapolis 500, and that was basically where the IRL started to become kart light. After that, he went to Formula One, won Monaco. He went to IndyCar, won the Indianapolis 500. So now he just needs the Le Mans 24 hours.
And he'll be the Triple Crown winner.
Yeah, which I'm surprised that a lot of these factories didn't call him, because since he's been in Europe with Seb, his son, with him being an F3, why they wouldn't call Juan Pablo Montoya as an option to drive a car. Like Penske, I kind of get because they want to have the Porsche guys and whatever. Ganassi, their situation, they're trying to run 2 drivers, but some of these teams, like I look at what's the one that Brady owns? Brady owns one of them teams. Oh, damn it!
They're sponsored by Hertz, right?
Yeah, the Hertz team. That was the one that Callum Ilott. They won. They won at Spa earlier in the season. Joda Sport. Yeah, Joda Sport. So, like, why wouldn't you got Jensen? Why can't you Juan? That would have been a good idea. But, at least, the long story short, I'm just glad it's happening. I mean, they brought Kamui Kobayashi. Heim did whatever he did in Nashville, but I think it's cool to have Juan Pablo come back. It'll be funny to hear him talk on TV because he'll probably say something crazy because he's Juan Pablo Montoya. So that'll be nice to see him back there. What is it? Corey LaJoie, a year after getting an extension, ends up getting, basically they're deciding to move on, which, like we mentioned a few minutes ago, I think there's a lot of curiosity with that car. I mean, is Andretti gonna buy into that team? Who are they gonna bring in? Who can they bring in? That's really where it's like, you look at Kyle Busch, is he willing to take that risk and go to a team that hasn't really done much of anything to try and get himself extricated out of the the abyss that is RCR. I think, and that would be basically the beginning of the end, which would probably be a great thing, to be fair. But for a guy who's that much of a tool, and basically has lived off of Dale Earnhardt's corpse for decades too, just like Teresa. But, like in Kyle Busch's case, if he wants to win again and he wants to be able to build something with Brexton in mind, that might be the move. And if you put him with Rodney Childers, are you kidding me? That is ridiculous. He's one of the only people that could go and talk back to Kyle Busch, I'm sure, too. And he knows what he's talking about because he also drove race cars really well. So, that is kind of a sick possibility if it could happen, but I don't know if that will. But we'll see what happens. Let's talk about football, man. We're getting ready for first preseason games this coming weekend. So, what are you looking at with your Jags, Josh, in terms of what to expect here during this first preseason game for them?
I think for me, I'm expecting, I want to see what the offensive line and defensive lines look like, especially with some injuries already happening on the offensive line side. So Cam Robinson, Anton Harrison, and Ezra Cleveland also getting an injury. So would like to see what that looks like for them, because obviously they paid Trevor Lawrence a lot of money this offseason, and they got to be able to protect him. So I'm looking for that, and I think that'll maybe help give us some insight into what the offense will be able to do this year, and if they can go beyond being a horizontal team and start going vertical more often. So that's kind of what I'm looking at offensively there, and if they can have opportunities in the run game there. So especially with backup running back Tank Bigsby, I think he's in due for a big year here, or well, at least a solid season after barely doing anything in his rookie season, and then when he did touch the ball, it was bad and turned it over. So obviously looking see if he can improve defensively. Looking what the defensive alignment looks like in this new scheme for Ryan Nielsen, and seeing how they will match up against the Chiefs. I don't know if Patrick Mahomes is going to play, probably not, but what's this defensive alignment looking like after the last 2 years running the 4-3 or 3-4 scheme? Actually, they ran 3-4 in 2021. So what's the scheme going to look like now with Trayvon Walker not playing upright, now hand in the dirt? I think that's his more natural position there. Josh Allen, after this offseason, he's put on more weight and looks like even more of a beast than he already is. So I want to see what that looks like, especially in linebackers as well with this new scheme there. So want to see what that looks like. And then, defense on the back end, Andre Zisco had 3 interceptions off of each quarterback, one per quarterback in practice today. So, he's been one of the better players, I think, in safety in the AFC. I think really came on the radar in 2022 when he popped a few guys on the Chiefs, Smith-Schuster in 2022 in the regular season. Definitely a hard-hitting guy from Syracuse University, and I think probably in line to be one of the better safeties in this league, and probably looking at a big extension here next offseason, which they gave the one extension to Tyson Campbell, but I think this one he'll get a pretty big contract here next year as long as he continues to play well. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at for the Jags, of course, and then also the kicking situation, the kicking, they've gotten Cam Little. I think he's looking like the starter here. They cut Riley Patterson last week, so I think Cam Little seems like he's going to be the guy, and want to see how he gets into a situation where they need to kick a long field goal. How's his leg look like? How's his accuracy like this early into his kicking career as a NFL kicker? So that's what I'm looking for, I guess, this Saturday here. Jags Chiefs already preseason already. For some reason I thought it was still a couple more weeks away, but we're already here. So yeah, I guess we got that going. So yeah, I guess football's back finally.
Yeah, I mean, it's coming back fast and furious. You got this week, I mean, you had the Hall of Fame game came out of nowhere on Thursday, and then they had the Hall of Fame inductions on Saturday afternoon. Now you have week one of the preseason. And, I mean, when it comes to these teams trying to go and get everything kind of squared away, trying to get those last roster spots filled, looking at special teams because of the new kickoff rules. I think that's going to be in play. I mean, I look at for the 49ers, I mean, you brought up your new defensive coordinator. The Niners have new defensive coordinator and Nick Sorensen taking over. I'm forgetting the guy's name from last year. The 49ers had as the defensive coordinator, but yeah, kills appears on defense showing his potential. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, that's, I think one thing to look at is what this defense brings now that there's kind of a mesh with the crew that they have there with Sorensen. I think he's made his strategy around working with Fred Warner, and basically building around and out kind of deal. You add all the talent that they have on that defensive line, and it might be the best defensive line in the NFL when healthy, with Nicholas John Bosa, Leonard Floyd, and I'm forgetting. I'm just really struggling today in terms of my memory. I guess it's old age. Yeah, you got oh, dang it. I'm going to be mad at myself. Not remembering Hargrave. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's other players. Some of these younger players are standing out a bit and putting in good efforts and progressing, which is big for this team, trying to get a lot of these younger players to produce. Dominic Pooney, the rookie tackle from Kansas, I think there's a good chance for him. He could sneak some good playing time as a swing tackle this year. You consider that they're probably going to give Trent Williams a new contract, and that's going to affect things a little bit. You have Ayuk, which that continues to be dramatic in the sense that we don't know if he's going to stay or not. I have a hard time believing they're going to let him go. The rumor now is, they're going to trade him to Cleveland for Amari Cooper. I don't think that that's a very good trade. I also don't think that he wants to get traded to freaking Cleveland, or the New England Patriots for that matter, which are the two teams that they mentioned. And I'm like, what the hell are they going to gain by doing that? Like, it would make more sense if they traded BA. Let's be fair, I don't think it's going to happen. But if you trade, like, to your guys, like you guys were inquiring on him supposedly during the draft process, Pittsburgh, that seems a little more logical. Those are options. Why wouldn't Baltimore be in play, or Kermit the Frog and company? They know that BA is good. They need to have that number one wide receiver just so they can just destroy everybody, right? But I look at that. I mean, he's not going to play. I think they're looking at the joint team practices here this time, or the end of next week, to try and get some of this stuff done. So it's probably going to be in play here this whole week, and then for a good amount of next week before we get some resolutions. Trent Williams is getting fined $50K a day for missing these practices, but it's Trent Williams, so I think this is just an overrated way of load management, keeping him keeping the mileage low to start the year, because their plan is to get all the way to New Orleans and get the job done. You need the best tackle in the NFL, best offensive lineman in the NFL, one of the best players in the NFL. That was another thing that actually took place. An aside, 9 out of the top 100 players were 49ers, so that's pretty sick. I mean, you got CMC, Trent Williams, GK, Bosa, Warner, Greenlaw. I'm trying to. BA, Debo. I think it was yeah. I mean, so there's and then there's probably other guys that could have flirted with it. Talanoa Hufanga was up there, but he got hurt last year. You have some of them other players that could contribute and make a difference. So we'll see. I mean, Juice right there. I mean, Juice is another one. So I mean, that's talent is there. It's just getting the job done. And I mean, early on right now, trying to fill out the team, give themselves that depth so that they can get through some rough patches during this season. It's going to be a long season, building out that special teams so that they make that a plus, which it's been a kind of a negative, especially in the return side. Pearsall showing why they drafted him in the first round, continuing to making highlight catches and the like. I think he's going to be in the bigger 4 wide, like the 3 and 4 wide receiver sets. He's going to make a difference spacing wise for this team, because his existence on the field is going to open windows for DK. It's going to open windows for CMC, and forget the fact that Deebo Samuel's probably in the best shape that he's been since he was a rookie. And that year he had a great year, and they went to the Super Bowl that year. So I mean, I look at the Niners, it's a lot of keeping guys upright and building, and we'll see what goes on with that here as they get through this first game. We're probably going to get we're going to get a lot of Josh Dobbs and Taylor Mordecai out there, or Tanner Mordecai. So we'll see how that all goes on and how that all works out. And what is that? They do. Oh boy. Yeah. So it says 49ers have Ayuk trade framework with Browns and Patriots. Wow. That is crazy. Negotiate contracts, Browns, Patriots, Commanders, and Steelers. Commanders removed and Steelers effectively no longer an option after declined trade demands. Browns would be in position if Amari Cooper. Patriots are expected to include Kendrick Bourne. That's god awful. Are you for real? That is crazy to me. You're going to get rid of your number one. You're going to get rid of the guy that Brock Purdy has the best connection with, and you're getting back Kendrick Bourne. You already know what Kendrick Bourne is. He's not a number one wide receiver. Debo is a hybrid. He's not that number one guy. You need to have somebody who is a number one guy. At that point, if you're going to make that trade, you have to go with Amari Cooper. Hope he stays upright, because at least he's proven he's a number one wide receiver. And he's a veteran, and he's a leader, albeit he played for the Cowgirls. But, if they trade Brandon Ayuk, it's going to be disappointing, I got to say. But he goes to Cleveland, that'll be the end of his career. But, he'll get paid a lot. But you'll be in Cleveland. So one of the worst ownership groups in all the NFL too. So that also helps. But okay. Yeah, that's crazy. I have a hard time I just really have a hard time thinking about that, but whatever. They'll be playing or they're showing that from last year. Wow. So, and then, they're showing that from last year. Why aren't they showing this year's? But, Okay, let's move forward. Yeah, I mean, fantasy football wise, we're going to have, I think there's a lot of discussion now with the running back position. Quarterback, of course, is very heavy in our league. So we're going to overdraft on that position based on the two quarterbacks starting. So running backs, wide receivers, their value is adjusted in the Fall Brawl League compared to others. But I would venture to say, I'm forgetting who finished last year, but whoever finished last is going to draft CMC number 1. But there are a lot of intriguing running back situations, a lot of committee situations these days with the way the running game is. Saquon Barkley now in Philly. That one is an interesting one. Yes, no Jason Kelsey, but one of the better offensive lines. They're going to emphasize the run there. That could be a good spot but with Saquon, you never know. He's the best ability is availability, and that's been an issue for him, except for a couple of years. I'm trying to think where else off the top of my head where there's going to be like a number 1 running back circumstance. I mean, it used to be much easier back in the day, but now it's not as much of a case. And then you look at the passing games, there's going to be a lot of the wide receiver positions way more open. Yeah, there are the elite guys, but you can make hay with a couple of, like what they would say tier 2, tier 3 guys because of the numbers. Puka Nacua did suffer a minor knee issue, so one of the standouts in fantasy last year, nursing a knee injury, probably is going to affect him up until the start of the regular season. So that'll be interesting to look at how that affects them. We're not going to have a tight end. I don't know in terms of the tight end situation, everyone's going to pick Kelsey. You have usual suspects after that. Mark Andrews, if he can stay up. GK, which, he's my favorite player. I'll say this. He's my favorite player. His wife's smoking hot. He's going to be a WWE champion at some point. But take George Kittle at your own peril, because Kyle Shanahan is averse to throwing him the football. And then George is so committed to being the greatest blocking tight end there's ever been, I think, that he wants to murder people that way, that he forgets the fact that he's a gifted physical talent that can catch the ball and make shit happen. So that I think that's an interesting thing also with the Ayuk situation, in that if they were to trade Ayuk, I think that would actually make George Kittle more valuable in general, because they're going to have to play him up. And actually, if they traded Ayuk, that would make Pearsall a bigger play as well. So I guess maybe that's what it was all about, why they drafted Pearsall, because they figured this would open up their offense a bit. And Purdy has shown that he can go and make things work with a lot of different guys. You look at Jawan Jennings, had the best game of his career in the Super Bowl. So, I don't know. What else did you have to add, Josh, in regards to the fantasy side?
Yeah, it could be a play there for Pearsall to get playing time if Ayuk does indeed get traded, which that would suck if Ayuk gets traded. But you guys got a lot of options there on the 49ers for targets each week, and definitely gonna have to say goodbye to that 49ers stack of Ayuk and Deebo Samuel. So if that does happen, but obviously both of those guys will get a lot of touches throughout the year. Fantasy wise, I think obviously McCaffrey is up there for running back. I do look forward in our league for Vic to start the QB run as usual. So I look forward to wherever draft position, whoever has number 1. We'll draft a QB probably. So I look forward to everybody scrambling to get a QB in the first 2 rounds of the fantasy draft. So that should be fun. and everything. So, I mean, other teams, I mean, Puka Nacua, like you said, that should be a good pick for whoever can get him. I mean, Lamar Jackson, I think he'll have a good season here, coming off of a year maybe where he could have, where he was the MVP. So definitely looking forward to seeing him play more often. Another injury-free season. Anthony Richardson could be another, depending on how healthy he stays, could be a good option. Tyreek Hill, for wide receivers, the most, top number one player in the NFL and top 100. So, he's definitely elusive and effective. So, he obviously would be somebody that will go to the, right, the right player I guess fantasy player will get him and have a good year more than likely, especially now that Tua has gotten paid. So they got to prove that Tua is actually worth the money. And so that means they'll feed Tyreek Hill a lot probably, and Jalen Waddle also. So, the Dolphins, got a good lineup. There's, tons of other players. Talked about everybody on the Jags. I guess one team you probably should avoid, maybe try to avoid Justin Herbert because he's gotten hurt again in training camp. And the Chargers, I guess, whatever. I mean, I guess they're just Michigan light at this point. So, they have nobody to look at on the outside, and they have nobody to go for. So besides Justin Herbert, so I don't know who would you pick up off of that squad. So rebuilding year in the Harbaugh era, so part 2. So that should be interesting this year. I mean, we've got 2 weeks to go basically until fantasy time. So looking forward to our draft and once again and seeing who will have a good draft pick and draft order, I guess, and looking forward to playing our league again, and trying to get the title. Hopefully one of us gets it. Then maybe we can have some art to display on the background of this show. So that would be nice. I was talking to some coworkers about fantasy, and they're like, "Oh, we should get Josh to play in our league." And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be cool, and we can kick somebody else out and put me in." So that would be cool if I had multiple fantasy leagues, which I think that work league is for free, no injury. I think it's all bragging rights, but as long as I have a chance to win something, I'm all good to play. So definitely our league though, going for the championship belt is where the priorities are. So I mean, there's a lot of players in the NFL. I mean, fantasy. So definitely be researching the next couple of weeks, especially leading up into the, I guess, mock draft period to get a guy. So we'll see how it goes, but definitely looking forward to this season, and hopefully, like I said, having a better ending to the season than we did last year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's really, what is it, 17 of the league. It's crazy to think. It shows how long I've been involved with fantasy, that I've had my own league for 17 years. Knowing how strong the league is, every big kind of milestone part of the season matters. So, I mean, obviously the prep matters, the draft matters. It isn't everything, but it at least gives you a foundation. And so we'll get into more details next week. With that, I mean, I'll talk about some of my other leagues. The one league I did win, which was now for a third time I won that league. So I've won twice in the last 4 seasons in that league. So that is nice. I haven't won my league in a long time, but I'm still the all-time leader. But I want one now, just to be able to say that beating this level of competition, the likes of Josh and, of course, Wilson and Vic, being able to beat those guys, Steve, and I'm trying to remember not Professor J, Jeff, and there's a lot of really good, there's some killers in there. So being able to go and get that, get the belt, I mean, I definitely, if I were to win the belt, I'm definitely sporting it on this show. I mean, I could sport it anytime I want to, but I haven't won it. so it just stays in the box. But if I were to win it, I would sport it on the show, probably for a year, because why not? But we'll see who does. If you do get the belt, Josh, I definitely wouldn't mind sending it to you because you're a bachelor, so I know nothing will happen to it. Most of the people that are in this league have kids, and I don't trust sending it to anybody who has kids. No offense to their children, no offense to them, but I don't want anything to happen to that damn thing. So it's, I guess, it should be with all the guys that are single, or in relationships, I guess, but, aren't, fully, haven't gone to the point of having kids yet. So, we will see how that all goes. Let me go back here. Yeah, so let's get into the roundup. Let's see what is going on in the world, the rest of the world of racing. IMSA ran Road America for another year and had a great race there. The results of the race at Road America saw the Penske Porsches continue their domination. Jaminet and Tandy win by just under 0.4 of a second over their teammates in Nazar and Cameron. The Acuras, the Wayne Taylor Acuras, tried to go for kind of a Hail Mary situation. Philippe Albuquerque, Ricky Taylor finished third. Jack Aiken, Pippo Durrani finished fourth with a Whelen Engineering Cadillac. Ben Viscal and Jimmy Bruni in the Proton Mustang sampling Porsche finished fifth. The two private Porsches, JDC Miller car with Westbrook and Vanderhelm, finished sixth. So 4 Porsches in the top 6. There was issues for the BMW. One of the BMWs wrecked. The other one finished up there. Ben Hanley and Ben Keating won in LMP2 over Kraut and Andrews for JDC Miller, and then Paul Chatin and PJ Hyatt in the AO Racing Purple Dinosaur there. So those were the podium finishers. Ryan DL was fourth. Some other ones. And then in GTD Pro, Altoe and Daniel Serra for Conquest Racing get their first win over Madison Snow and Brian Sellers, the Paul Miller Beamer, and then Alex Riberas, Ross Gunn for the Harder Racing Aston Martin. Patrick Gallagher and Robbie Foley for Turner Motorsport gets the win in GTD over Shandorf and Brendan Uribe, the Inception McLaren, and then the Stephen McAleer, Sheena Monk, Gradient Racing Acura getting the last podium spot in GTD. Okay, so yeah, that was Road America. The points heading into Virginia International Raceway, which is a GT-only event. The point standing is right now Dane Cameron and Felipe Nasr lead their teammates by 100 points, and then they have 185-point lead on Sebastian Bourdais and Renger van de Zande. And then you have Aiken and Durrani in fourth, Louis Delatraz and Jordan Taylor in fifth. So those are the drivers that are still kind of in the mix there in LMP2. The drivers, Nick Boole and Tom Dillman leading the points there over Felipe Fraga, Gar Robinson. It was a 4 and 20, 24, 27 points. Yeah, then Dial is in third, Ben Hanley, Ben Keating in fourth, and then Dan Goldberg by himself in fifth. In GTD Pro, Lauren Heinrich leads the points. Of course, Seb Prio left the AO Racing team because he's involved in the Multimatic situation there with the Aston Martin. So I think he's going to be involved with that and drive that. So Lauren Heinrich leads the points on his own over Ross Gunn. And Then Ben Barnico, Jack Hawksworth in third, a few points out of Antonio Garcia, Alex Sims, and then Brian Sellers, Madison Snow, rounding out your top 5. In GTD, Philip Ellis and Russell Ward lead by over 200, 270, it looks like, on Robbie Foley, Patrick Gallagher, Parker Thompson in third, Mikel Grenier in fourth, Albert Costa, Balboa, Manny Franco, Ferrari in fifth. So, and it'll be GT, as I mentioned, GT only at Virginia International Raceway. In MotoGP, the British Grand Prix, Enea Bassini wins both legs, both the sprint and the feature itself. And the other main storyline is Jorge Martin retakes the points lead. So that will that's by finishing second. Pecco Bagnaia finished third. Marc Marquez fourth. Fabio Di Gianantonio fifth. So Ducatis take the top 5. Alicia Spargaro was sixth. I mean, you count that 7 out of the top 8 were Ducatis and 8 of the top 10. The only 2 non-Ducatis were Espargaro in 6th and Pedro Acosta in 9th. It shows how dominant they are. The VR46 team officially announced as the satellite team for Ducati, so they'll get brand new bikes, both 2 brand new bikes next year. Similar spec as the factory team. And then you got through some of the other guys, John Muir non-classified. Your Trackhouse guys fell out in the first lap with Brad Binder. Remy Gardner was filling in for Yamaha because of Rins and finished last on the road, 12 seconds behind Luca Marini, who was 10 seconds behind Gusto Fernandez and Taka Nakagami, who got the last point there. And so then that's MotoGP. Trying to go through to you got MotoGP, British Grand Prix, and Moto2. Joe Roberts had a massive accident in the race and lost a lot of points. Jake Dixon gets a home victory over Aaron Canet and Celestino Vietti. Sergio Garcia fourth, Gonzalez fifth. As I mentioned, Manny Ramirez, the teammate to Joe Roberts, got 1 point, and he crashes. So the points heading into next round. Jorge Martin for MotoGP, 3-point lead over Bagnaia. Bassini moves up to third over Marquez. And then in the best of the rest category, Maverick Vinales, 8 points out of Pedro Acosta. And Brad Binder, Di Gianantonio, Alicia Spargaro, and then Marc Marquez rounding out the top 10. In Moto2, Garcia leads by 18 points over Ayagura. Joe Roberts is 37 points back now. Aldeguer and Lopez, 4th and 5th. Okay, so let's move on. WRC Rally Finland was dominated by 2-time defending world champion Kalle Rovanperä and looked like he was going to win, but then had an epic collapse late, which allowed teammate and multi-time world champion Sebastian Ogier gave him the opportunity for victory. So, and it actually has him in the mix for the championship also, but it's his 3rd win of the season. You consider Kalle Rovanperä, it would have been his 4th win of the season and 3rd in a row. But instead he has 3, Ogier has 3. Their next rally is Acropolis rally, so they have months time between rallies. Right now, Thierry Neuville has a 27-point lead on Sebastian Ogier, who has missed 3 rounds. Tanek, who's raced every round, is third, 31 points back. And then Alfred Evans is in fourth, and Adrian Formeau is fifth. Cali Rovanpera, who also, Tanek, Evans, Rovanpera all retired from the rally. So that would have been big for Rovanpera, but Ogier now moves up to second in the points, and he hasn't even raced 3 of the rounds. So that's interesting how that works out. Okay, we go from that to World Superbikes, the WSBK, World Superbike, SBK, Motul, FIM World Superbike, in Portimao, in Rasgalioku Land, and Portimao, Algarve, the points in the World Superbike Championship, Toprak Rasgalioku, 64 points ahead of Nicolo Bulega. Alvaro Bautista is 40 points behind Bulega. Alex Lowe's in fourth is 20 points behind Bautista. And then Andrea Locatelli, Ian Owen, Gardner, Danilo Petrucci, the riders with double digits. Johnny Ray is in 10th. Garrett Gerloff in 13th. And then the last round, Toprak Rasgalioku, the last 2 rounds, or 3 actually, the last 3 rounds, Rasgalioku has won every single race. So he's won 9 consecutive races, or 10 consecutive races, because he won race 2 at Assen. The last time he didn't win a race was the sprint race, or Super Pole race. I say sprint because mixing up MotoGP, the Super Pole race at Assen in April. So could go out and set a record. If you say, well, I have a good weekend this coming weekend there at Portimao. And last but not least, Knoxville, the Knoxville Nationals. I mentioned that Rico Abreu, who won one of the prelim nights, or a couple, was really competitive at Eldora trying to win the King's Royal, wins the Capitani Classic. So that's big deal there. Nationals start on the 7th. So that one, NOS Energy Knoxville Nationals, 7th through the 10th. What is it? Brian Brown won the 360 Nationals there. So I'm gonna go late model Nationals, Knoxville Nationals details. Trying to get happenings format. So they already have, 108 cars will be in, and they only have 2 prelim nights. So, that means, so that's 54 cars in each race each day. Kyle Larson, the defending winner. David Gravels, former winner of this race. I thought he hadn't won, but he is former winner. Sammy Swindell's former winner of the Knoxville Nationals as well. We go through some of these other drivers. Donnie Schatz, of course, 10-time Knoxville Nationals winner. Tim Schaefer, Craig Kinzer. Those are all the former winners of the race in that first prelim night. Other names to look at, you got Jacob Allen, Don Dowd, Chase Randall, Sawyer Phillips, Brock Zierfoss, Jamie Ball, Candy Kane, Parker Price Miller, Brian Paulus, that's a throwback name, Justin Beck, Corey Day, Sam Haferteep, Sheldon Haudenschild, Gio Scelzi, Brent Marks, Cole Macedo, Garrett Williamson, Carson McCarl, Anthony Macri, Danny Dietrich, one of the Pennsylvania posse, Blake Hahn, Kerry Madsen, McKenna Hassey, Buddy Kofoid in the Meat Packers 83, Aaron Reitzel, Skylar G. Then in Thursday's race, or prelim night, you have, and what is, and I don't know what they show, and Jake Newman. You got Brad Sweet, former winner of this race, along with Kyle Larson. And so the two owners of No Limit Series, the family, because brother-in-law. Kyle Reinhardt's from New Jersey. Oh, there you go. Tanner Thorson, Austin McCraw, James McFadden, Darren Pittman, Chris Wyndham. Yeah, you got Carson Macedo, Kevin Henry, Emerson Axum, Zeb Wise, Dason Pursley. I mentioned Rico Abreu, Axum and Pursley, both rookies. Terry McCall, Brian Brown, Brady Bacon, Brooke Tatnell, Bill Hunter Schoenberg, Dormeyer, and Corey Eliason, Tyler Courtney, Justin Anderson, Spencer Baston, Zomer Ayrton, Jeniton, Tim Kading, Logan Schuhart, Hasker Phillips. Yeah, so entry list there. Not that many winners, but the guys who are former winners of this race are pretty damn good. So see who can come through the prelim nights and put themselves in a position to win the Knoxville Nationals, the A-Main. Oh, that's for Wednesday, Thursday qualifying nights. The winner of the A-Main will win $190,000, $85,000 for second, so a huge drop off. And then from there, drops off even further, 45, 30, 25,000 if you finish in the top five. So see what happens there. Hopefully Rico can go and get the job done there. All right, so let us move forward to the Truck Series, Josh. Last race of their regular season. It's insane to think, but it's a Truck Series. 38 trucks for 36 spots. A couple people will go home. Going into the driver point standings, Eckes has a 50-point lead, so essentially has to start the race on Saturday. Probably do all right if he can get some stage points. Basically, it will be a lock. Get those 15 playoff points, which would be huge for him. Right now, he's 9 points behind Heim. So if he were to get the 15, and even if Corey Heim won, they would be separated by a point. Eckes would have the lead. Looking at the people who have wins, the top five in points right now all have wins, and nobody else. You got, in points-wise, it's very close between Ankrum and Enfinger, 6 points. Taylor Gray is 43 points ahead of his brother Tanner. Ben Rhodes trying to defend his championship. Tanner Gray. Daniel Dye only 5 points behind Tanner Gray. 16 points for Stuart Friesen. And then it's much more of a distance for everybody else. Matt Crafton on. If you're there, that's basically you're going to have to win the race. Crafton, former multi-time series champion. Lane Riggs driving for front row. Just as a couple examples of people that would need to win to get the job done. I look at the top five. Eckes and Heim have won 8 races. 10, 11, 12, yeah. So 12 out of the 15 races have been won by those 5 drivers. Nick Sanchez, 2 wins. Majeski, Carruth, 1 each. So, it's gonna probably come out of one of those 5 more than likely at Richmond on Saturday. I don't remember who picked first last time. You picked first, Josh, so I'll go and pick first for the Truck Series, and I'll go with Corey Heim. He does behave like a douche, but he's a really talented driver at Richmond. Phil goes with Corey Heim to win. I'll say that Eckes wins regular season title. In terms of who makes it into the playoffs, I don't see any changes. I think the 10 that we have right now will stay the 10. So I think that'll be the first time when 2 brothers have made it in probably into the Truck Series playoff. So that'll be interesting to see if that holds up. My wild card pick for this weekend's race at Richmond, the Clean Harbors 250. And you have Sawatch in the 1. You have Connor Zilich in the 7. Trey Hutchin trying to make it in. A guy named Jerry Bowman. Keith McGee, 27 for Reum, doesn't have a driver. Hunter Jones in the 66 for Thorsport. Justin Carroll 90. Connor Hall, whoever he is, in the 91. Maggio, and then Tyler Young decided to take Thad Moffat's money to go and crash every week. So my wild card for this weekend at Richmond, I'll say is I'm gonna go with I'll go with Chase Purdy, just because he would be a wild card if he could actually do something. How about you, Josh? What do you say for the Truck Series?
It's a pretty big wild card there, but I guess I'm just going to go with Christian Eckes. I'll just take the opposite, and he wins. I mean, by default, he would win the regular season title, so I'll pick him. I guess my wild card, and I don't think the playoff grid changes at all, but my wild card, I'll just go with Lane Riggs. Short track, Richmond is a place where, possibly you could do well. I mean, not going to try to wild card him to the point where, he wins and shakes up the playoff grid, but I think he could maybe be a, possible top 10 run here at this track.
Yeah, and I mean, considering how disappointing the season has been at times for Lane Riggs, getting that top 10 finish would be big for them, even though they are a championship winning organization in the Truck Series in the past. So the Cup Series will race the Cookout 400 on Sunday evening. There you have 37 for 36. Trying to look through here. Renai for Briscoe. Riley Herbst will be in the 15 for Rick Ware. Ty Dillon will be in the 16 for Colleague. We'll look through some of these others. Here's John Hunter. Jesse Parker Retzloff in the 66. So you get first dibs, Josh, on the Cup Series here, just based on the most recent results, which were back in the end of March. The Toyota Owners 400 saw Denny Hamlin get the win over Joey Logano. Kyle Larson, Martin Truex basically led the majority of the race between the two of them. There wasn't a whole lot of leading laps after that or around that. So, what do you say, Josh, for Richmond?
Yeah, Richmond, it's kind of random to see Richmond, in the summer, but for Cup. But I'm just going to go with Martin Truex. He needs a win. He's going to retire, so it doesn't shake up the playoff grid at all, and he probably should have won this race back in the spring. So yeah, I'm going to go with Martin Truex Jr. And we probably should note that this race, I mean, I don't know how it'll affect anything, but they are having the option tire in this race, so that is a storyline to look out for in this race. So yeah, we'll go with Martin Truex, and then wild card here. Josh Berry. Let's go with Josh Berry here. And this is a track that, he made his Cup or Xfinity debut all the way back in the day. So see what he can do here. Finished 11th, coming from 30th here. Granted, rain race was a bit different back then, but, this is the type of track that he can do well on.
Yeah, and he finished second in the 9 car at Richmond last year, filling in for William Clyde Elliott II. So best career finish there as well. If it isn't going to be Martinsville, I think Richmond probably would be the best chance for Barry to get a win here before the end of the season. For me, I will go with Kyle Larson, because why not? Larson to win. But it was either going to be him or Hamlin. But my wild card selection is going to be it's tough. I will go with I'll go with Todd Gilliland because he's been on a roll and going into the break, so opportunity to get a top 15 finish I think would be pretty good for him. Okay, so with that, let's move forward to your sim segment, Josh. What were you doing or were able to do on iRacing, and any updates on the go-karting and whatever else you want to talk about in this segment?
Yeah, well, didn't have any go-karting this weekend. It was last weekend, or the previous weekend was like the last race for the summer for the league, but we'll maybe come back in the fall. We'll see what the calendar looks like then. But the sim racing, I mean, I did a little bit of everything, I think. Ran GR86 at Okayama Circuit, ran up into second in one of the little races, attempted to do the not IMSA, but I guess sports car or GT4 sports car series at Road America. Didn't finish well there, got spun out on the second lap. And then tried to do Ferrari GT3 at Watkins Glen and had some issues there. But yeah, I think ran the best at the GR86 car class at Okayama Circuit. So really like that car. It's a fun car to drive, running there and everything. Been playing a lot of NCAA College Football 25. I have went undefeated in the season and made it to the national championship and defeated the University of Michigan for national title game in college football. So in College Football 25, I've returned the Gators back to the national championship and have won. My recruiting game sucks. I think I maybe only had a handful of recruits throughout the entire regular season, and then I picked up some in the off season. So I guess I'm more focused on the actual gameplay and not the recruiting part. But that's what college football is all about, is the recruiting. So I have to figure something else out. And now I'm seeing why Jim Harbaugh probably went back to the NFL. Why there were rumors about Dan Mullen going to the NFL and possibly coaching the Jets, because recruiting is annoying. But it's an interesting experience, and see how, I guess, in 2025 in the game, not 2024, how recruiting goes. But it's a fun game so far. Maybe trying to get some friends to play online or whatever and get a league going or something like that. We'll see, but or some kind of dynasty. But yeah, I still need to try the, I guess, glory mode where you create your player and everything and go to your glory days or whatever. I need to do that, but more interested in the team building part right now, the program building. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's kind of what I've been on PlayStation right here for a bit. So doing that, I guess doing that. What else? Saw Deadpool this past weekend. So funny movie there. Laughed a lot as usual. So did that. I guess in iRacing news, I was trying to find, see what else is out there in iRacing. And they are releasing a new car, the McLaren 720S FAF Motorsports, which I saw that one at the 24 Hours of Daytona back at the beginning of the year. I have some pretty good pictures of that one running on track with Hinchcliffe and, running with, I forgot who he was teammates with. Was he teammates with Rossi? I think so, and you're muted.
Yeah, he was with Rossi. They and whatever their regular driver lineup.
Yeah, so that was one of the cool cars there at the 24. So back then, but that's all I got really for iRacing right now. Been mostly focused on college football stuff, but that's kind of funny. Seeing college football come back, and I don't even think I'm gonna get Madden this year. Honestly, like I want to, but or I kind of want to just play as the Jags, but I feel like college football gave me my football fix in gaming for this year. So, which is kind of good. At least it's different than what I usually do and everything. So, I guess this week on iRacing, got a NASCAR 87 series at Daytona, so I think I try to do that one. Hopefully, Gen 4 at Road America. That's an interesting combination there. Road racing with the Gen 4 car, which is pretty tough on tires and easy. It's very fickle to run with. Got that IndyCar at Fontana. Always a fun one, so hopefully I can run that one. And partly cloudy in the daytime, so daytime IndyCar. All right, like that 2015 race, which we all love to go back to in our memories and everything. Mustangs at Road America, Ferrari GT3 at Spa. Global MX5 Cup at Tsukuba Circuit, Toyota GR 86 at Road America, Rainmaster is also at Spa with the Ferrari GT3, SimLab Challenge, at WeatherTech Raceway here. So we actually got some good combos this week here on iRacing. So the Formula V at Oshlerbin and the Formula Fords at the rookie or Class D series at Monza, or not Monza, but at Imola here. The IndyCar series, so the, I guess, road course IndyCar series is at Chicago Street Course. So that's kind of interesting there. And then the Formula Fords are at the rookie Formula Fords are at Oshlersbin Motorsport Arena. So that's all the all the series here. Got some pretty good lineups here this week, so definitely try to hit them all up. Well, maybe not all of them, but definitely the ones that I feel like I got a good shot at. So definitely be later in the week probably. We'll see how the rest of the week goes, but that's what I'll be looking at possibly here on iRacing this current week. So maybe I'll have to stream Daytona and Auto Club at least. So remember one time I think I was streaming Auto Club and I spun out on the last lap coming to the flag with the lead, and had the lead and spun out. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. But anyways, the Twitch stream, of course, at USailor 2, which might have to stream some college football as well. So gonna be facing some friends here hopefully later this week. So we'll be doing that. So maybe streaming there. Got that. And then, of course, my Twitter, JP Huffine, of course, go on there and follow me there. And, of course, our YouTube page at Group Share Podcast on YouTube. Go and follow our page and go and subscribe to our channel. So, go on there and view all our shows. So, that's it for me this week. Glad to have the breaker racing, but ready to get back into it with Richmond, I guess, of all tracks, and this final summer stretch before the playoffs and NASCAR start.
Yeah, we're going to start that with the lead into the playoffs for NASCAR. IndyCar will be back next week with their run out to their championship, which will be fast. There'll be Gateway, Milwaukee, Nashville. You'll have Portland in there. In between all that, but you can find me at PG Matthew 28 on Twitter. You can find us at Gripstrip on Twitter. Basically anywhere you can hear podcasts, or get podcasts, you can hear or find the Gripstrip podcast. You can find us on Podbean, also on Apple and philipgmatthew.com blog site. So those are all places you can find us. We'll be back next week for episode 233 of the GSP to recap both NASCAR Cup and Trucks at Richmond. We talk about IndyCar coming back. We'll get into week 1 of the NFL preseason and anything else that comes up. I mean, you brought up college football. I loved college football. And I'm like, once they talked about that, I'm like, I might actually have to buy a new system just because I want to play that game. So that, who knows, maybe I'll save up for Christmas or something. I'll get one because I really want to play that game again. I used to love building the dynasties. So with Boise State, because I liked Boise State and the Smurf turf, or Rutgers so I could prove a point that I'm a better coach than Greg Schiano. Guy can recruit, but he's a shitty head coach. So we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll be able to get that, or maybe somebody will listen and be like, I feel nice enough to go and buy Phil something, but I doubt that. But either way, for Josh, I'm Phil. Thanks for listening to GSP, and we'll see you next time.